Welcome to Indie Journal in Focus. I'm Prajakta, and today we have with us Dr. Jaya Mehta and Mr. Vinit Tiwari. Welcome to the studio. Dr. Jaya Mehta is a senior economist from Joshi Institute of Social Studies in Delhi. She is renowned for her work in poverty alleviation, in about marginal farmers and about women's issues as well. Mr. Vinit Tiwari is a senior journalist and he is also an analyst who is known for his coverage of issues, a wide range of issues related to tribals, related to farmers, related to development, and so on. Today we have both of them in the studio for discussing their new book. The name of the book is From the Realm of Necessity to the Realm of Freedom. It's a book based on a detailed study of the collective farming practice in Kerala under the Kudumbasree mission by the Kerala government. So we will discuss with them the journey of the book and their observations on field while writing the book, while collecting the material for the book. So let's start with the first question. So considering both of your backgrounds and your study related to the subject of the books in different aspects, how did you reach the point where you thought of undertaking this particular project?
We were actually, Vinit is also working in Joshi Institute, and we joined Joshi Institute, which is a research institute affiliated to Communist Party of India, in 2009. And when we joined, the first project that we took was concerning the agrarian crisis. And in that project, we surveyed, we had a primary survey of 8 states, marginal farmers and small farmers of 8 states, their production and marketing pattern. So every state we had 4 districts covered, and in every district we covered 4 villages. So for every state we covered 16 villages, and like that 8 states we covered. It was a large survey, and when we said we covered a village, we almost, had a very brief information about all the households in the village. Or if it was a very big village, then half the households, every alternate household. And from that study of ours, we thought that the only way to resolve the agrarian crisis with which Indian economy has been faced for last since the liberalization period, say from 1995 onwards, so many farmers have committed suicide, and we go on hearing about the tragedies in rural areas. So we thought the only way to resolve the crisis would be to look at land-labor relations and restructure them radically. So government data is also there, which says that the number of men and women who are dependent on on agriculture for their livelihood, it's in 2009 it was about 50% of the total workforce, and the basic resource, which is land in agriculture, is limited, and it is fast getting converted for non-agricultural usage. So in such a situation, we thought, unless we have a very radical restructuring in the agrarian field, there is no way one can resolve the crisis. And that radical restructuring meant that, there are so many small holdings, marginal holdings and small holdings cover about, I think 85% of the total holdings or more. So these holdings have to be necessarily pooled together, and you have to think in terms of production collectives.
Right.
So change the ownership pattern from individual ownership to collective ownership. And when we drew that inference from our first study, then we started looking for examples where some kind of a collective production endeavor has taken place. And we came across this Kudumbasree mission in Kerala, where large number of women all over the state had got into this kind of a collective production endeavor. So that was the reason why I took up the study.
Okay. So when you started the study, how did that journey go? I mean, where did you start? How did you start? Who did you talk to? How did that process go?
basically we again took some different agricultural zones of Kerala. So there were three geographical distributed zones. So we took we chose those zones, and in those zones we again chose on the method of sample selection. We chose some villages, and then other criteria were there, like we had to see that women headed households and who women are there who are taking up this land on lease, and who are they, which caste they belong to, how are they forming the groups, because whether Kerala has certainly a different kind of social situation as well, but are there same caste women taking up the land on lease, or there are mixed groups. So on that basis, on religion, some kind of configuration was taking place. So various things, and also on the crops grown, what crops they were growing. And Kudumbasree missions, this particular program of collective farming is just one program, but it's a very important program. Kudumbasree mission has almost 4 crore women, 40 million women involved in it. But this particular program involves 2 lakh women. And these 2 lakh women, after some 10-15 years of this practice of collective farming, they have converted almost 1.5 lakh acres of land into the arable agricultural land, which was otherwise lying fallow, uncultivated for years together. As you know that Kerala's migration to Gulf countries is very high.
Yes.
So this journey, certainly we should mention the name of the people like Dr. S. Radha, who helped us. There was a communist leader, Comrade Chandrapan, and his wife, Bulu Roy Chaudhary. They all helped us a lot, because not knowing Malayalam, we couldn't do anything otherwise, and especially in the rural areas,
Right.
where they don't know English. So setting up a rapport with them and knowing them, knowing the kind of social milieu, the geographical milieu, which is very different from North Indian villages and other places.
Exactly.
So it was a beautiful journey, one must say, and it took us a long time to come to this result of a book, but because we, as Jaya also mentions, that we wanted to do justice with this great endeavor, which show, in a way, Kerala shows the way the rest of the India, and even it is an irony. I want to point it out that in India, less people know about Kudumbasree.
Exactly.
But abroad, there are so many universities, academics, and activists. They are taking interest in what kind of this experiment has. It's no more an experiment. It has now spread in all the state, across all the districts. So it's a wonderful thing which has come out.
I think it has achieved more global accolades than it has gained any acknowledgement in the country.
But I was wanting to tell you that actually when the 8 states that we had chosen, Kerala was one of the states. And the first survey that we did it with the help of Kisan Sabha.
Yes.
And lots of Kisan Sabha activists helped us in that conducting that primary survey. So in Kerala also we had contact with Kisan Sabha. We had contact with the party, CPI, and also CPM, and Kudumbasree mission itself also. They helped us in designing the surveys, choosing the sample, and also provided us with investigators on this thing. So that was the contact which he missed out. And also I want to tell you a bit about what Kudumbasree mission is.
Yes.
See, this started in it formally was inaugurated in 1998. But the whole idea was that the state of Kerala decided to have a poverty alleviation program. And a poverty alleviation program which is different then how people look at poverty, like giving, finding the poverty group population and then giving them some kind of a subsidy. Instead of that, they decided that the women from that very group should identify the poverty group population. So they had some criterias, number of 9 criterias were there, according to which the women themselves will identify who are the poverty group households, and then they would form neighborhood groups, and these neighborhood groups would then look towards poverty alleviation program as a program where they become independent, they are empowered, they start earning. So these neighborhood groups, which began as thrift and saving groups, they later on started income earning activities, and whole range of income earning activities from lots of activities in manufacturing and in service sector, in IT, some of the educated women in urban areas, and in rural areas, this farming was, of course, a very popular activity. So collective farming was part of the income earning program of Kudumbasree mission. And then these neighborhood groups were then federated into area development society and community development society, which corresponded to a panchayat level geographical area. So these they covered the entire state. Then they were all connected with each other horizontally, and they were connected also vertically, because the income earning activities ranged from agriculture to manufacturing to service sector. So this was a very well-knit kind of a program which started in 1998, and we did the survey in 2012 and 13. So we cannot say that now in last 10 years it must have matured more, but even in that short period we found a very significant difference in women's attitude and women's whole capability to work and capability to understand politics and their situation in politics.
Coming to a similar point, so women farming community at large, all over the country, it has remained quite neglected as compared to their male counterparts. They have been neglected in policy making. They have not been thought about as much as they should be in the programs that are designed for the agricultural community. I think mainly because they are not landowners. They don't own the land. They are usually the landless laborers, and they don't have the agency to raise their voices, to raise their issues. So Kudumbasree, it addresses this issue exactly per se, and how has it helped change the perspective of looking at women farmers?
See, women farmers in this crisis-ridden agriculture of India should be divided into 3 categories. Like not women farmers, women in agricultural workforce. There are women who are coming from landless households, so they work as agricultural laborers. And their activities are different than men. And in every state, including Kerala, their wages are lower. For the same work also, their wages are lower than their counterpart. Then the women who belong to cultivator households. If it's a very small holding, then from cultivator households, these also women go for wage labor. But the women who belong to cultivator households, I have been looking at agriculture very minutely, and I think that they should be also divided into 2 different categories. One category is when women are unpaid family labor. The kind of women that you are describing, that they do a lot of work. Their work is not accounted for, and they have no say in decision making, because decision making is all done by the male members of their household, and they don't have land ownership. But a new category has cropped up in last, let's say, from the liberalization period, if you'd like to say, where large number of women have got de facto control over the land. There are 2 kinds of women. One are farm widows. So if you have more than 5 lakh farmers who have committed suicide, then at least you have that number. But then their wives, many of them have struggled to get hold of the land that was left behind. So these are farm widows. And the other category of women, which is larger in number, and it has a different characteristic, are the wives and relatives of migrant laborers.
Hmm.
So migration has taken a huge jump in the neoliberal era, and in states like Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, one would find and even in Tamil Nadu, you would find villages after villages. All the young men have left the village for partial work or permanently. So the village is left to the women. Now these women are, they're not isolated individuals like the farm widows. They are together in that village, and they look after the land, and the laborers are also women, the owners are also women, and they do have large amount of control, and these villages are not small in number. So this new category of women farmers who have got de facto control over the land because of the crisis situation in agriculture have a different potential to participate in the agricultural production process and to establish their identity and their work results and work accountability in agriculture. And I do think that the wage laborers are also, although they may be getting lower wages, they are also independent. So the wage laborers and these cultivator women who have de facto control, they form quite a large section of the women who are in agriculture. There are, of course, 30-40% women in agriculture in cultivator households who work as unpaid family labor. And they have dropped out also. You may probably not know this fact that from 2000, I think, or 2004-05 to 2010-11, the NSSO data said that 20 million women dropped out of agriculture. And then 2010-11 to 2018-19, another 20 million women have dropped out. So there were about 100 million women in agriculture. Now there are only 60 million. And these are mostly the women who are working as unpaid family labor. So, if the men come back and take charge of the agriculture, they drop out from the labor force altogether. Or if the men sell off their land and move out, then also they become, they're not part of. So there hasn't been so much reduction in male agricultural workforce as the reduction in female agricultural workforce has been the largest in the entire workforce of India. Which is to be looked into.
Okay. Well, exactly. So we don't see any on the level of policy, on the level of government schemes, we don't see this being addressed the way it should be, right? The dropping out of women laborers, the women taking control of the farmlands where their husbands or their male counterparts have, the male farmers, they have left the villages. So we don't see any government action towards it. We don't see government.
I think that for last 30 years, the way governments after governments have seen this particular policy or their perspective towards the farming community, towards agriculture, towards working people. Whenever we see any movement, like people's movement in agriculture or some demands, agitations, they're mainly coming from the upper section of that community.
Right.
So they're anyway, whether it's a male or female are more marginalized within that section. But even most of the section in farming community, they are on margins and they are never given any priority. So if you see 5 lakh, almost in 30 years, 5 lakh farmers have committed suicide. What was the response from the government? When Manmohan Singh's government was there, they only said that we will waive the loans. But why the loans were taken, why they were not able to repay the loans, who were they, from which sections they were coming, what is happening, whether if they are disappearing from the agriculture, like 4 crore women disappeared from the workforce, agricultural work, where have they gone? Such kind of studies, their concern. Planning Commission should have done it. Now Planning Commission is not there. And whatever Niti Ayog is there, they are there to further privatize things or
Exactly.
I mean, we see the way people are looked.
Exactly. But yes.
Before you ask another
Yeah.
question, I would like to bring here the international scene. And I put my hypothesis like this, that so far as agriculture is concerned, the tropical countries are rich and the temperate zone is poor. But because of their political control and whatever the whole process of colonization, the West, the empire in the West, has always looked at Africa, Asia as providing raw material, and raw material which they require. So even now, although colonies are not there, but imperialism has not gone. So even now, the world market is such, and the imperialist countries have this desire that so many things which can be grown only in tropical countries, like fruits and flowers and all kinds of exotic things and coffee and tea, the entire agricultural cropping pattern should change according to their requirement. And since they have excess of grain, the grain should come to tropical countries, and this has happened in Africa. So they have, for their basic food security, they've got dependent on the West. And so far as Indian neoliberal regime is concerned, political economy of it, they don't mind. They have anyway handed over a lot of agricultural operations to corporate, the input and agro-processing, and they don't mind changing the cropping pattern through contract farming. You have tomatoes, you have oranges, and you make sauce, and you make squash, and you do this, and you have potato chips. And for your basic food grain, which the people of India require, you can
import it. Yes.
So leave aside the question of looking at the marginalized section of agriculture. The whole present struggle for the last 1 year has been that at least allow us to have control. Even the rich farmers are saying, don't hand it over to corporates.
Exactly.
Because you have state intervention and allow us to have control over it. So leave aside looking at the marginalized section, the government is not even looking at national sovereignty in the case of food.
So in all of this, in this whole picture, where does collective farming practice that falls under the Kudumbasree mission, where does it stand? What role does it play?
Kerala is a different state in the sense that it has a very deep-rooted left traditions. And in Kerala, the Kudumbasree, and not just collective farming, the Kudumbasree women themselves have made a place for themselves to be recognized. The collective farming that, let me tell you, the Kerala land reform, which took place in 1969-70, what did it do? It had the principle that land to the tiller. So there were lots of landowners. The traditional system was that land was owned by the Nambudri Brahmins, and then it was given to tenants and subtenants and subtenants. So the first very major step that land reform took was to give away the land to the tenant farmers. The tenant farmers became the owners. And then they banned tenancy after that. But that land reform had its own problems, and it did not provide land to everybody. It also, the land ceiling was implemented, so it also created small holdings. And by 80s, the tenancy again cropped up for two reasons. One, as he said, the Gulf money and the level of education in Kerala resulted in young men leaving the agriculture. They're not interested, even if they're in India, they're not interested in becoming a farmer. So men were not interested in agriculture. And lots of money that came from Gulf, the land, instead of becoming a productive agent, became a asset in the real estate. So land was held as an asset, not as a productive agent. And labor also moved away from. So that was the situation in which this Kudumbasree women got into taking fallow land on lease collectively. So they are not collective owners of the land that they are cultivating. They are collective tenants. And till now they are collective tenants. So actually, I suggest that there has to be another land reform in Kerala where again the land is given to tenants. So these collective tenants will then become collective owners. And once they become collective owners, and if there is about, I think, 47,000 hectare of land or something
More than
like
50,000.
50,000 hectare of land and 2 lakh women. And if the land-labor relationship changes from individual ownership to collective ownership, they will set a precedence of how collective ownership can help them maintaining themselves in this capitalist frame and then struggling further to change the entire frame into a frame where people-oriented production takes place for the necessities of people.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to ask, that how does this help?
I mean, if you see the way corporate tried to take control over the agricultural land, they were dealing basically with the individual farmers, offering them higher rates than the market rates. So farmers were ready to sell the land, because you know that in some 10 years before this government report was there, that 40% of the farmers were wanting to leave the agriculture because it was not profitable enough. So in that scenario where the agriculture was not fetching enough income to the family, and it was taking too much labor also, in that scenario, many farmers were wanting to leave the agriculture, and if they sometime get that some highway is passing through their land, and suddenly the rate of the land suddenly shoots up, beyond their imagination sometimes. So they were ready to sell the land. In such situation, when the rates can be bargained collectively, so this is not easy. This doesn't remain easy for any corporate or any big landlord or any real estate people to develop a colony nearby to take the land. So if it is a collective thing, and if it starts bringing that kind of income as well, and for that matter, the entire scenario can be changed, as she suggested, because collective efforts will be there. I tell you some small thing, like a male farmer having a small piece of land, a small farmer, a medium farmer even, they are afraid of stepping up the bank, like they are afraid of the police stations, because banks also treat poor farmers very badly.
Yes.
Sometimes for their schemes they go to them, otherwise a lot of corruption is also there in the rural banking. Now what happens that these women, they go collectively, and when they go collectively, the bank officer or any government institution, if they go collectively, their demands are to be heard, their due subsidies are to be given. Otherwise it happens that the rich farmer of the village, they get the best fertilizers, they get the best subsidies at correct timing, they get the best seeds also on correct time. So the poor farmers, the small farmers, the marginal farmers, they don't dare to go to the shops to claim their due. But in case of a collective strength,
together,
it changes this.
So going beyond that also, the collective farming practice, where does it stand as far as we look at sustainable practice in agriculture, or we see where the world is moving right now, what we are talking about, that agriculture should be more in adherence to the indigenous needs, indigenous crops, sustainable practices. So if we look at Kerala as an example, if we look at Kudumbasree farming collective farming as an example, where does it stand as far as these issues are concerned?
In vegetable, they have taken up organic farming in a very big way, and Kudumbasree has played an important role into that. And so far as environment is concerned, which is really has started directly affecting the peasantry, one has to take care of it at the level of at global level, not at village level and district level. It requires that you get rid of profit motive. To have sustainable existence for the entire civilization of this planet, you require that the profit motive is, under control.
Mm-hmm.
Then only you can look at the larger society and future society
Mm-hmm.
and sustainability. So this is a beginning of changing individual ownership to collective ownership
Mm-hmm.
and getting rid of profit as the main anchor for all activities and looking at society and civilization. And this is the beginning, and there is always a small beginning for large changes.
Exactly. So, as you said, collectives of farmers, they help the farmers deal with a lot of problems that an individual farmers would find more challenging to deal with. So, we just spoke about environment and the environmental challenges that are in front of the farmer right now. So, the losses that a farmer incurs after an erratic rainfall or after sudden weather change. So, in collective farming, do you think the farmers will be able to face these challenges better if they are farming together?
We have come across many such cases during our study where such calamities suffer. I mean, these groups, women's groups, they suffered with such calamities. Sometimes their crop was destroyed by the animals. Their good crop, they invested a whole lot of labor and everything. They did very good job, but the grown-up crop was destroyed by the animals. Sometimes it was another bottleneck of this collective farming program is there, that it doesn't give you the permanent kind of tenancy. So if the land starts getting cultivated, and after 1, 2, 3, 4 years, the owner of the land, they think in terms of, it is giving us some kind of profit. So they also want to take it back, and they also are afraid that someday they may claim that we want to own this land. So such things are there. But as they have come out of some other hurdles, we are sure that they will come out of this hurdle as well. And in this collective way, small individuals' problems, the way we see, I mean, it's still there is caste factor. The Kerala is not totally 100% devoid of caste or religious divide. It's still there, but it is lesser than the rest of the India. And we see that the different caste groups are formed, different religious groups. Women from different religious groups, they come together, they form a group, and they work together, and they help each other at the time of the need, whether it is some family need of some individual person. In one case, one of the elderly women member of the group, she was, she got a fracture. And all other women members of the group, they took care of her. They shared the profit also with her. They didn't say that you didn't work in the farm because of this reason, so you are not authorized to take your share. So this way, this human bond, which will make the earth sustainable. The basic thing is that we should have some mutual human concern.
Yes.
If that is there, then the environment questions can be resolved, then there will be no wars, and I think many more things we can dream of.
There's one more thing that I want to say before we end, that I said that these neighborhood groups are federated. So, there can be n number of collectives in a region. And instead of individual competing, the collective groups can compete. That is what happened in Yugoslavia. So you have a collective ownership on a small level, and then they start competing with each other. Or you have a collective like Amul, which has to compete with the corporate world. So what we envision is federation of these collectives so that they cooperate with each other. They don't compete with each other. And they form such a big group that they are able to present an alternative to the corporate market world, where not competition but cooperation is the anchor. Okay.
Should we end, or can I take one more question? Is it fine?
Just one last question.
About the name, So, just one last question. The name of the book, it holds a huge significance. It has a huge significance. So, would you like to tell the viewers a little more about it? Why did you choose this name?
This is from realm of necessity to realm of freedom, and this was the name suggested to us by Shri S.P. Shuklaji, who was the president of Joshi Institute. And I personally liked it very much because this whole book deals with a poverty alleviation program, realm of necessity, and how in that poverty alleviation program, how it evolved, and the women who were the subject to be helped, they evolved. And I have dealt with it in great detail, that how their whole attitude changed, and they started participating in Kerala Panchayats in a big way. So they have from targets who have to be helped, they have now reached a stage where they are participating in the planning and implementation of Panchayat level plans. So they are now from realm of necessity to realm of freedom. At least they move towards that.
Yes.
Additionally, S.P. Shuklaji also took it from the writings of Karl Marx, because that is what the entire the dream of Marxism is, where we don't just work for the necessity, just don't work for somebody works as a journalist just to earn the bread and butter, or come fulfilling the material needs, but to work like you are not compelled to work. You are working any work. You are working as you are free, and if you are free, then you will give your best. You are not a slave. So it's in a way it's a slavery, and from slavery we are moving towards freedom.
Yes.
It is our salute to these working class women who have really worked wonders.
Yes.
And that's what.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving
Thanks
your time and sharing your insights into what went behind the creation of this book and your study in this issue at large. You can buy the book on Amazon. It's available online at the moment. Is it available anywhere else? Would you like to?
In most of the major towns, it is there. In Kerala, in Trivandrum, it is kept on the bookstores, and Bombay also. This is there in the bookstores. Delhi, many other places. It's available.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was Indie Journal in Focus. If you like this video, if you find this information helpful, useful, do share this with your friends and family. And do not forget to subscribe the channel and hit the like icon. Thank you.